the moment I decided to enter an arranged marriage. My arch-nemesis, Justin, took a 20-hour flight just to laugh in my face. Weren't you the one who swore you'd never get married? Finally couldn't stand being lonely. Huh? It's common knowledge that we're at each other's throats, sworn enemies. But what they don't know is that Justin and I were in a secret relationship for 3 years. And what Justin doesn't know is that we almost had a child. Justin was back in the country. I heard the news at a dinner party. As the night wound down, the deals were done. People dropped their formal airs and the conversation loosened up. One person marveled, the prodigal son is finally settling down. Is he getting ready to take over the family business? Another scoffed, shaking his head. I doubt it. A leopard can't change its spots. He probably got bored overseas and came back to keep playing around. Amid the chatter, someone turned to me. I remember, Mr. Miller, you were old classmates, weren't you? The lively atmosphere cooled ever so slightly. Facing a web of intersecting gazes, I tightened my grip on my wine glass and gave a quiet, yes, we were in the same class in college. The man, oblivious, continued enthusiastically. I was an alum too, actually. Back then, you and Justin were the big men on campus. Always showing up together, you two were super tight. Together. Super tight. The crowd fell silent, but their eyes darted back and forth. A dozen unspoken conversations happening in the air. He finally sensed something was off and his words slowed to a halt. Someone else stepped in to play peacemaker and save the newcomer. That's ancient history. Like you said, it's Mr. Miller and Justin now. They're not on the same path anymore. Seeing his flustered embarrassment, I pursed my lips and managed a small smile. You're not wrong. Back then, he and we really were on good terms. The fact that we later became bitter rivals, locked in a battle for our family's interests, was also true. But no one knew that during those good times in college, and through every single day and night of our corporate warfare, we were in love. From a secret crush to a confessed love. Justin and I dated in secret for 3 years. Those 3 years were hidden from the world, but we were serious. I was the one who broke up with him. He flew overseas without a word and I never heard from him again. It's been 5 years since we broke up. What was he doing back? After the party, I headed home. The driver was steady the whole way, but as we neared the house, he let out a rare honk and a grumble. I'd been resting with my eyes closed, and the sound startled me. I instinctively pressed a hand to my forehead, frowning. I really shouldn't have had that last glass of wine. I drunk it too fast, trying to quiet the butterflies in my stomach, and now my head was throbbing. I had a conference call across time zones in the morning, a mountain of work to deal with, a meeting with my grandfather's primary care physician. My head hurt more and more. The car had been stopped for a while. The driver's voice was hesitant. Mr. Miller, there's someone blocking the gate. Should I call security? My eyes snapped open, my hand freezing at my temple. Felt surreal. Like a scene from a dream I'd had one night. The main character of our earlier conversation, the one person I'd been trying not to think about all night, was standing right in front of my gate. The headlights were blinding, bleaching the scene like an overexposed old photograph. Justin was in a white t-shirt and a black jacket, sitting casually on his suitcase with one leg crossed, his expression a blur. My thoughts went blurry with him. Sir? The driver was still waiting for my order. I stared at that suitcase. 5 years ago, Justin had used it to pack up everything of his in my house. The wheels had made a loud rumbling noise on the stone path of the front yard. He never once looked back. Just drive through. What? The driver glanced, stunned, into the rearview mirror. Seeing my calm expression, he nodded quickly. Yes, sir. The engine roared to life. The bumper nearly touched Justin's leg, but he didn't move an inch. As we got closer, the blinding white light moved down, and I could finally see his face. He was smiling. It was the same smile as 5 years ago, a casual, reckless air with a sharp edge hidden beneath. And I knew he wouldn't move. A standoff was pointless. Not wanting to make things difficult for my driver, I opened the car door. Thanks for your hard work tonight. Get some rest. As the last syllable fell, my eyes met Justin's. What are you supposed to say at a reunion like this? Long time no see? How have you been? Did you miss me? I didn't guess a single one correctly. Justin smirked, looking me over for a long moment before slowly standing up. Julian Miller, I hear you're getting married. Did you really risk deep vein thrombosis on a 20-hour flight just to say that to my face? He blinked, then the curve of his lips deepened. Worried about me? Just a friendly reminder, I said, loosening my tie slightly. You and I are not in a position to be having this conversation. With that, I walked past him, my face a mask of indifference. Behind me, the dull rumble of suitcase wheels started up, following me at a steady pace all the way to the front door. I stepped inside, turned, and looked down at Justin, who stood 2 steps below the threshold. Just as he had blocked my gate, I was now blocking his path. And we're not in a position for me to let you in either. The door shut. The housekeeper had left a late-night snack. I took a few bites, then went to shower. I deliberately emptied my mind, so when I walked out of the bathroom and saw Justin leaning against the wall, it took me a few solid beats to react. I couldn't imagine anyone in the house letting him in. For him to be standing here now, it could only mean, you haven't changed the keypad code in all these years. Are you lazy, or just can't let go? I'd used that code for so long that pressing the numbers was muscle memory. I'd almost forgotten its original meaning, the date he first marked me. Thanks for the reminder. I'll change it later. Meeting his intense gaze, I tightened my bathrobe. Was there something else? He didn't answer, just took a step toward me. My expression immediately hardened and I lowered my voice. Don't tell me you're not just giving me a hands-on lesson in security risks, but you're also just a classless creep who breaks into people's homes? Justin stopped in front of me, his playful tone gone. Julian, there's no one else here. You don't have to speak in riddles. And you know there's no one else. Is it really appropriate to show up at your ex's house in the middle of the night? You're right, it's not. His light-colored eyes were fixed on me. After a long moment, a ghost of a smile touched his lips. But, my dear ex, I left something here, and you have to give it back. When he left, he took everything. He cut the clothes we'd bought together in half, smashed the mugs until only the handles were left, and took all the appliances except for a single plug. Thank God we never got a pet, and we didn't have a child. He'd been so thorough. For him to claim he'd left something behind now was almost laughable. There's nothing of yours here anymore. There is. You still owe me. Justin leaned in, his voice dropping to a low whisper. His hot breath washed over my ear as he enunciated each word. Break. Sex. My scalp tingled. I stared at him, incredulous. Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? Am I? He scoffed and straightened up. Who's the one talking nonsense? Who broke up with me out of the blue on the night I proposed and swore up and down they'd never get married in their life? What, you finally couldn't stand being lonely? Justin must have come straight to my house from the airport. He hadn't had time to adjust to the time difference, and he looked terrible. His chest rose and fell, his breathing heavy and strained. Financially compatible, no fertility issues. Ha! Julian, is that really all you're looking for in a husband? 9 words? Those were the criteria I'd given the professional matchmaker to find a suitable marriage partner. The news had already spread through our circles, so it was no surprise he knew. It was a bit blunt, but with my grandfather's health, I didn't have the luxury of taking my time. I didn't want him to die with his wishes unfulfilled. Justin didn't need to know any of that, but my silence seemed to infuriate him. If you're that desperate, why not come to me? Is there anyone else who knows how to make you feel good better than I do? Justin. I cut him off. We broke up. Whatever I do is none of your business. Oh? He pressed, relentless. Is there really someone like that? A hand suddenly clamped around my lower back. Before I could struggle, his palm slid up my spine and pressed a specific spot on my shoulder blade. Here. Justin pressed harder through the bathrobe, his eyes red as he demanded, Has anyone else touched you here? There was a small mole there, one of my most sensitive spots. Justin loved to kiss that mole when we were tangled together, pushing me to my limit, only to stop me right at the edge and watch me cry and beg for more. The faint scent of black iris began to fill the air. The moment I smelled it, a violent tremor shot through me, sending waves crashing through my body. Justin's pheromones. It had been too long. The reaction was so strong my willpower nearly broke. Calm down. I took a deep breath and grit my teeth, pushing him away. If you want an explanation, I can apologize.
I'm sorry, Justin.
I broke my word. I used to say I'd rather die than get married. And now I'm getting married. Are you satisfied? As the words left my mouth, I swiped a hand at the potted plant by the bathroom door, knocking it to the floor. Crash. The butler, hearing the noise, came rushing up, albeit a little late. The moment he saw Justin, he turned right around and ran back downstairs to get help. He'd seen how ugly our breakup was. Every servant in this house had. The sound of urgent, overlapping footsteps echoed from the stairs. Justin took a step back, a hint of mockery in his smile. He was taller and more built than he was 5 years ago. The arm that had been wrapped around my waist was strong and solid. But right now, he looked like he was about to collapse. Did you really think I rushed here, sleepless for hours on end, just to get an explanation from you? I froze for a second, then looked away without thinking, repeating softly, I'm sorry. You should go home and get some rest. I'm exhausted, and I have a very important meeting tomorrow. I won't see you out. Justin let out a dry laugh. I'm standing right here. How important could it be? It wasn't until the next day that I understood what he meant by that last sentence. The foreign company we'd been working with for nearly 5 years, its actual owner was Justin. He ignored the explosion of murmurs in the conference room, calmly walked over to my side, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Long time no see, Mr. Miller. His smile was bright and defiant. I'd only managed to get to sleep late last night with the help of a sleeping pill, and my reflexes were still shot. I just sat there, looking as cold and detached as ever, but in reality, I had no idea how to react. Justin gave a casual self-introduction and started moving the meeting forward. After a night to cool off, all of his uncontrolled agitation and anger had vanished. Now his gaze was sharp and piercing, his features deep and intense. His presence was both familiar and strange. How could it be him? This long-term, stable partnership had opened up new business territories, helped us avoid international trade risks, and most importantly, it had saved the Miller family when we were on the brink of collapse. I had always been grateful for it, cherished it, but how could it be him? I tried to dig through the past 5 years of correspondence, searching for overlooked details. The refusal to ever have video calls, the perfectly timed birthday emails, the random comment that popped up mid-meeting. It's snowing in your city. A warm weight settled on my thigh, a slow, gentle caress. I jolted back to reality, my body instantly tensing up. Justin kept his eyes fixed on the big screen, nodding in agreement from time to time, but his hand didn't move. That's a big reaction. Your acting has gotten worse. He cornered me at my office door after the meeting. Worried about the prying eyes in the company, I had no choice but to let him in. He looked around, then slowly walked over to my desk. Did you see the looks on your employees' faces? It brings back memories. It was just like this back then. We'd look like we were about to tear each other apart, scaring everyone into silence. But in reality, he stopped at the edge of my desk, turned slowly, and raised an eyebrow at me. That night, you were on top of me, barely able to breathe. My hand, hanging at my side, clenched into a fist. Don't bring up the past. Click. The sound of a tally counter. I paused, then frowned and walked over. Don't touch my things. Justin dodged my hand. 997. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything special. He looked down, toying with the metal counter. It looked tiny in his hand. Click, click. 2 more clicks, and the numbers all reset to 0. Fine, let them be 0. It's not like, is it the number of times you've thought about me? My heart skipped a beat. He was always so effortlessly in control. Whether it was his studies, his career, or my own feelings, he could always grasp them with ease. No, my expression was stiff, my voice wooden. I changed the subject even more awkwardly. That company, how is it you? Justin finally put down the counter and looked up at me. Why can't it be me? We broke up. Julian, let's get something straight. You broke up with me. I never agreed to it, not from the beginning. So what if he didn't agree? We were still separated for 5 years. The office was soundproof. Once the voices stopped, it became exceptionally quiet. We stood in a silent standoff for a long time. I was the first to back down. What do you want? His answer was quick. Don't get married. My response was just as fast. Sorry, I can't do that. Justin stared at me. Don't marry someone else. I suddenly noticed he was dressed very formally today. A dark, custom-tailored suit, matching leather shoes and belt, and carefully chosen accessories. Not a single hair out of place. Sharp and handsome. It was hard not to remember him from before. Surrounded by a room full of flowers. Down on one knee. Thinking of proposing again? I laughed. You were rejected once. Do you want to be rejected a second time? In the end, we parted on bad terms again. I operated like a numb machine, handling a mountain of work before heading to the hospital. At his age, the body is very fragile. Rather than aggressive treatments with high risks, it's better to preserve the little conscious time he has left. The doctor's meaning was clear. I nodded to show I understood. My grandfather's health was much worse than other men his age. The last 5 years had drained almost all of his remaining energy. He should have been enjoying a comfortable retirement, tending to his flowers, walking his birds, traveling, being a happy old man. If the Miller family hadn't fallen into crisis 5 years ago. How's your brother doing lately? He's fine. Keep an eye on them. Don't let them get taken advantage of. I know. He nodded, slurped a spoonful of millet porridge, and turned his cloudy eyes to me. And you? The hospital gown hung loosely on his frame, exposing a gaunt forearm covered in winding blue veins. I watched him for a moment, then looked away. Soon. The matchmaker said she'll have news for me tomorrow. He finished his porridge, set the bowl aside, and let out an almost imperceptible sigh. Of the 3 of you, you're the most reliable, but you're also the one I worry about the most. Once you've decided, bring the person here. Let Grandpa give my final approval. A while ago, my grandfather had announced his will. Whichever of us 3 Omega brothers produced an heir first would inherit the entire estate. My 2 younger brothers moved fast. One went for artificial insemination, the other hired an alpha from a university. They each had their own brand of crazy. I did some digging behind the scenes and confirmed the people around them were clean, so I let them be. Based on the current situation, I was probably the one making the slowest progress. It was evening by the time I left the hospital. I waited for a bit, but the driver was nowhere to be seen. I was just about to pull out my phone to ask when I saw a message from 10 minutes ago. A big crying emoji, saying he'd parked poorly and his car got towed while he ran out to buy a bottle of water. It was so absurd my head started to throb again. As I stood there, dazed, a bright silver car pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, and Justin's head popped out. Get in. No thanks. I refused coldly, put my phone away, and turned to walk away. He shadowed me like a ghost. Just as I was about to exit the hospital gates, he gunned the engine and cut me off. Do I need to go upstairs and have a chat with your grandfather? My steps froze. I glared at him. You wouldn't dare. Justin just shrugged, leaning over with a smirk to open the passenger side door. Get in. He was blocking the exit, and the cars behind him were starting to honk impatiently. I closed my eyes, pulled the door open, and got in. I'm warning you, don't bother him. I know. Justin locked the doors briskly. His tone was much lighter than it had been this morning, as if a great weight had been lifted. He was completely free of his earlier gloom, looking relieved. So weird. I turned to look out the window. The streetlights were flickering on, like a series of hazy, old dreams. Did you have my mark removed? The car stopped at a red light. Through the reflection in the window, my eyes met Justin's. I'm not a good liar. My brain stuttered for a moment. It faded away a long time ago. Faded away? My fingers tightened unconsciously. I had it removed. A few seconds of silence from my side, then a snort. Makes sense. How could you carry someone else's child with my mark on you? Removing it, did it hurt? The topic was suffocating. I wanted some air, but he had the windows locked. All I could do was reach up and loosen my tie. Don't tempt me. You know what I'm like. Justin, in a relationship that's called flirting. Right now, it's just sexual harassment. Justin snorted again. Look at you, all logical and analytical now. What about your own decision? Did you think it through? Letting a will lead you by the nose. You're worse than your two brothers. At least they're not throwing their whole lives away. Of course, you shouldn't be like them either. So reckless. It seemed he'd figured out why I chose to get married. No wonder he was so happy. He thought I was being forced into it. I pushed my tie back up. Don't go digging into other people's family business. If I didn't, I wouldn't have known you'd become this stupid. A stack of papers was tossed onto my lap. Take a good look. I looked down and opened it. It was a copy of a will signed by my grandfather. Unlike the version he told us about, this one was written in black and white, clear as day. The inheritance was to be divided equally 3 ways, with no condition about producing an heir. Justin was still spewing insults, but slowly. His voice softened and finally fell silent. For a long time. You knew all along? Did you think I've just been messing around all these years? Then why did you still obediently choose an arranged marriage? I closed the file, folded my hands, and said calmly, Justin, this whole thing isn't as helpless or tragic as you think. Grandpa just wanted a gesture. He wanted it, so of course I'll give it to him. And it just so happens that a marriage alliance with an equal family is good for the Millers. It's a win-win. His knuckles on the steering wheel turned white. Justin's face went cold. He yanked the wheel, screeching to a halt on the side of the road. He didn't even bother to unbuckle his seatbelt. He grabbed my shoulders and leaned in close. You specifically requested no fertility issues. You really want to have someone else's child? His voice was tight, all the earlier lightness gone. I tried the door, but it was locked. I was getting frustrated and stuffy. This is a no parking zone. Either open the door or drive. You think you're the only one who can call a tow truck? Julian, look at me. His voice was so loud it made my eardrums ring. I bit my lip and didn't move. In the small space, the scent of black iris suddenly grew stronger. I dared not look at him even more now. Terrified my true feelings would escape through my eyes. Even now, my body still instinctively reacted to Justin. My heart did too. I suppressed a few short breaths and pulled at the door handle again. Justin, I wanted to remind you last night. Can you control your pheromones? Don't just let them out like, I can't control it. The pressure on my shoulders intensified. You can have my mark removed, except another alpha. But what about me? Every time I go into a rut, I have to rely on the junk I took from your house to get through it. The scent faded from the water glass first, then the razor, and finally your shirt. But even that little bit of scent was completely gone by the year before last. Julian, do you have any idea how much I've missed you? Without you, my life has been hell. You could. My voice was hoarse, stuck in my throat. I closed my eyes and forced the words out. Find a new partner. The breathing beside me stopped. After a moment, he asked in a trembling voice, You want me to find someone else? You're so emotionally unstable, it's probably because of pheromone imbalance, right? It's too hard, you don't have to tough it out. If you find a suitable omega, be proactive. Your family definitely wants you to start your own family soon. I consoled him like a competent business partner, a longtime confidant. Anything but a lover. Do you think they haven't tried? All these years, they've thrown one omega after another at me, setting up traps again and again. When I was going crazy missing you, I hated you the most. I thought, to hell with it, there are plenty of omegas in the world. I must be out of my mind to be hung up on you. But it just doesn't work. His voice grew softer, his hot breath hovering over my neck, moving closer to my scent gland. I only want you. I'm begging you. I stared straight ahead, unmoved. When had the ever-playful, always composed Justin ever begged so humbly for someone's pheromones? It was pitiful enough to be impossible to refuse. Too bad. No. The pheromones, the ones you're familiar with and nostalgic for, they're gone. They can't soothe you now. I turned my head, creating a little distance. I clearly saw Justin's expression go blank for a second. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He smelled it, the tart, bitter scent of sour orange. After an omega is marked, their pheromones merge with their alphas, creating a new, composite scent. My original scent was lime. After I got with Justin, it was mostly dominated by his black iris. Today's sour orange was completely foreign to him. Justin, it's time to turn the page. Someone tapped on the car window. My third brother, Brendan, was trying to peer inside. I'd sent him my live location before putting my phone away. He'd arrived right on time. Why? A question chased after me as I got out of the car. Anyone else is fine, but not me? Sitting in Brendan's car, I took out the suppressants I'd picked up at the hospital and expertly gave myself 2 shots. Bro, why do you never go to the scenting center? All 3 Miller brothers are omegas. Grandpa set up a scenting center where they create artificial pheromones to help us get through our heats comfortably. It's a hassle. He turned his head and mumbled, getting suppressant shots is clearly more of a hassle. I put away the syringe and said nothing. Home? Or the office? The heat in my body slowly subsided. I leaned back. To the cemetery. Huh? To see Mom and Dad? Yeah. The Miller family cemetery was on a hilltop. Brendan started complaining he was tired after a short climb and fell far behind. I stood alone in front of my parents' graves for a while, lit a cigarette and walked to another spot. Under a regularly trimmed cypress tree was a beautiful green stone. I placed the cigarette on it and slowly straightened up. The smoke rose gently, then was scattered by the wind. On the stone steps not far away, Brendan was texting someone. A smile he couldn't suppress on his face. It's nice, a life of simple freedom. He didn't know that the reason I don't go to the scenting center isn't because it's a hassle. It's because it doesn't work. The one telling everyone to turn the page had secretly dog-eared a corner. I never had Justin's mark removed. When my heat comes, my body only recognizes him. No matter how advanced the artificial pheromones are, they're useless. Justin would also never guess there's another reason an omega scent can change so drastically. A miscarriage. I looked at the small, inconspicuous mound behind the green stone. Buried there was an unformed secret. The cigarette burned down to the end. I picked it up and took a drag. The taste of tobacco filled my lungs. A spreading, numb bitterness. I wanted to ask, too, why is it that I'm not enough? I've been calm and self-disciplined my whole life. Justin was my long-overdue rebellion. We slept together the day we made it official. He gave me a permanent mark the first time we slept together. We both knew perfectly well that the Hall and Miller families had a blood feud going back 3 generations. They would never allow us to be together. But so what? Do 2 independent people need anyone's permission to fall in love? At school, we used club activities and competitions as our cover. Once we joined our respective family companies, we were rivals in public, acting like the other didn't exist. In private, we'd kiss until we were breathless in dark underground parking garages. It was absurd and harmonious. We're kind of like Romeo and Juliet, huh? Justin suddenly remarked once after sex. I didn't even have the energy to roll my eyes at him. Can you think of something positive? Did those 2 have a happy ending? As if my words were a prophecy, everything changed. My adventurous parents were lost in a tsunami. My youngest brother's presentation as an omega was traumatic due to the grief, and he almost became an invalid. In an instant, the powerful Miller family became a feast for vultures. Those with old grudges and new ambitions, those who were friendly on the surface but harbored ill intentions, they all circled. Broken supply chains, abnormal deliveries, sky-high breach of contract fees. Every day brought a new, endless stream of problems. Grandpa and I were forced to take the helm, often too busy to even eat. Justin couldn't help me openly, he could only support me in secret. Soon, his family came to my door, with a circle of elite lawyers and bodyguards. I stood alone in the center, under so many gazes, hearing so many ugly words, but I could still manage a smile. What can I say? Your son loves me. Justin loved me. I had no doubt about that. Family opposition was never an obstacle for us. I always believed that as long as I was sure of that, it was enough. But one time, a crucial project negotiation coincided with Justin's rut. I didn't have time to be locked in a room with him, so I told him to manage with suppressants for a few days. He clung to me, refusing to let go. You haven't slept in days. Just let me hold you for a while. I won't mess with you. My heart softened and I gave in, on the condition that he wake me up at 6 in the morning. He didn't mess with me, but he also didn't wake me up. When I woke up in his arms, the time had already passed. The project we were supposed to fight for was a done deal. It had gone to the Hall family. Justin was deeply unsettled, apologizing constantly and promising to cover my losses. I didn't say much. After all, his intentions were good, he just wanted me to get some rest. But my heart sank. That was the first time I truly understood the gap between us. Justin loved me, but he only loved me. If our positions were reversed, no matter how tired or worn out he was, I would have dragged him out of bed and pushed him to that negotiating table. I couldn't only love him. The teetering Miller family, my brothers who weren't yet ready to take on the world, my aging grandfather. I couldn't let go of any of them. It was a chaotic time, overwhelming, exhausting, yet often filled with moments of happiness. I felt happy, but I always had this feeling that something was slipping through my fingers. I couldn't think about it too deeply. I didn't dare. One morning, I had a strange dream and had a faint feeling we might have messed up. I went to the hospital in secret. The report confirmed my suspicion. There was a new life inside me. I couldn't even remember which time we'd been careless. The stress had made us desperate, and the frequency was insane. Most of it was a blur. That morning, I sat in the hallway, holding the report, and for the first time, I thought long and hard. I finally came to a conclusion. This little life was ill-timed. It shouldn't have come. I was sure that if I told Justin, he would have been ecstatic, spinning me around in his arms. The question of whether we should keep it would never have even crossed his mind. He was just like his pheromones, an extreme romantic who wouldn't consider the urgent reality of our situation. He'd be perfectly happy for the three of us to live under a bridge. So I kept the news to myself and walked straight into the operating room. That afternoon, I returned to the office and carried on with my duties as if nothing had happened. Late at night, alone, I sat in my office, staring into space, a hand on my stomach. A longtime partner was poached by the Hall family and terminated our contract. The Hall family maliciously intercepted our raw materials, making it impossible to fulfill our orders. The problems kept piling up, crushing me. I felt like I was on a sinking ship, helpless and powerless. Justin's video call felt like a lifeboat. My chest rose and fell rapidly as I answered. The other end was noisy. "Julian, are you still at the office? Why are the lights off? Look who I'm with, our friends from college." The few who knew Justin and I were a couple. They were having a late-night dinner, everyone laughing happily. "Should I come pick you up? The takeout box on your desk must be cold by now. Don't eat it." The lifeboat drifted away. The next day, when I got home, I sluggishly realized what their dinner was all about. A room full of flowers, and Justin, dressed formally, down on one knee. "Julian Miller, marry me. Justin, let's break up." The matchmaker sent me a message. I had a reputation for being a cold-hearted tyrant, and the Miller family hadn't fully recovered, so most alphas of equal standing were taking a wait-and-see approach. Few responded, except for a few rising stars. I looked through the profiles she sent and was surprised to see the clumsy guy from the party. Leo Chen, a beta. A beta? My fingers tapped lightly on the desk. After a moment of thought, I replied briefly, "Please schedule a meeting with Leo Chen for me." He was 2 years younger than me and had taken over his family business relatively recently. His face still had an innocence that hadn't been beaten down by the corporate world. "Is this your family's arrangement? Is there someone you like? Do you even know what an arranged marriage is?" Leo was stumped by my questions. After a while, he finally stammered out it was my own idea. I like He glanced at me, his face turning red. Actually, I wanted to talk to you last time, but I messed it up. I'm sorry. My heart sank. He wasn't what I was looking for. I gave him what could be considered a gentle smile. Let's eat first. He nodded blankly and stuffed a piece of broccoli in his mouth. After swallowing, he seemed to process it. Mr. Miller, you're not interested in me, are you? His directness was stunning. You're great, but we're not a good fit. Specifically, what's not a good fit? I'll see if I can change. I pondered for a moment and answered him seriously. The essence of an arranged marriage is the arrangement, not the marriage. It's two people who don't like each other, temporarily bound together for some mutual benefit. I can't hold you back. He nodded as if he sort of understood. I quickly went through the list of candidates in my head, wondering if I could schedule another meeting for later that night. I had to hurry. Grandpa's condition was changing daily. He couldn't wait. So, Mr. Miller, is there someone you like? I paused, meeting his gaze. Faced with such sincerity, it was hard to lie. Yes. Is he poor? He's quite rich. Does he not like you? He likes me. Leo looked utterly confused. You like each other but can't be together? Is he already married? I couldn't help but laugh. No, because his last name is Hall. I couldn't push the Miller family back into the line of fire just for my own selfish love. The matchmaker said she couldn't arrange another meeting on such short notice. I gave up and focused on discussing business with the man in front of me. After dinner, I saw him to his car and stood at the restaurant entrance for a while. Maybe it was the wine and the wind, but my head started to throb again. It's been happening too frequently lately. I need to get it checked out. But I sighed. I really don't have the time. Yesterday's deal was only half done. So Justin came to the office again. This time, I was no longer flustered. I gave him a slight nod and a polite Mr. Hall. He wasn't officially listed as a partner, but the news would eventually get back to the Hall family. I didn't know what kind of dirty tricks they would pull against the Millers then. Once this quarter's contract was over, I had to find a way to seek new opportunities. I raised a hand to my temple and had just started to rub it when my phone, lying on the table, vibrated. Mr. Miller, I thought about it all night, and I think the arrangement and the marriage can coexist. Another one. It's okay if you don't like me right away. Feelings can be cultivated. Sensing a gaze from my side, I flipped my phone face down and looked up at the projection screen. The long meeting finally ended. To avoid being cornered by Justin again, I quickly packed up and stood to make a swift exit. A hand reached into my field of vision, blocking my path. Pleasure doing business with you. Everyone in the conference room looked over. Their excitement for the drama was palpable. I shot a cold glare at Brendan, who had the widest grin, and slowly raised my hand to shake his.
Schmidt.
The pleasure was all mine. Justin once again successfully followed me into my office. When are you planning on going back? Back overseas, back to the Hall family, anywhere but hovering around me. Are you not feeling well? I paused for a second, then picked up my water glass and took a sip. I'm fine. I finished the water, but Justin was still staring at me. Is there anything else? He's not right for you. A sharp pain shot through my head. I started to raise my hand, but then I remembered Justin was watching and put it back down. Are you stalking me? I was having dinner with my family. Just happened to see you. He went home. Good. He was the one who unilaterally cut ties and moved into my house, and then he left for another country without a word. In the end, he still went back home. He tried to hit on you back in college. I had someone threaten him a little and he ran off. He's a coward. Can't handle anything serious. Talking behind someone's back is even more disgraceful, I said, putting my cup down and gripping the edge of the desk for support. At least he's better than someone who's thick-skinned and won't take no for an answer. Justin's lips tightened at my jab. He really was thick-skinned. I had made myself so clear, rejected him so many times, yet he still kept coming toward me. I subconsciously glanced behind me. The desk. Nowhere to retreat. Great. I really picked a great spot for myself. Justin's eyes were locked on me. He leaned forward slightly, his presence closing in. What are you? Behind me, the tally counter started clicking repeatedly. My brain stalled for a second. What? 9 times. Justin paused. The number of times I wanted to touch you during the meeting. My face started to burn. I held my breath, pushing against his chest as he pressed closer. Justin, that's enough. Don't make me say something ugly. He laughed. You've never been able to say anything nice with that mouth of yours. A familiar yet strange heat surged through me. A nerve in my head started throbbing. Logic told me to get away from him as fast as possible. But instinct made me arch my back. Justin's body tensed for a second, then his smile widened. Julian, he's a beta. When you're like this, how is he supposed to help you? Who said I need his help? Oh, not him? Then will you find the one responsible for that sour orange scent? I bit my lip and looked toward the call button on the other side of the desk. Justin saw right through me. My hand was caught mid-reach and pinned firmly to the desk. I've turned this entire city upside down, and I can't find anyone like that. Does he even exist? The position was far too intimate. I gritted my teeth and struggled. Let go of me. Justin ignored me. Is that damn scent a masterpiece from your family's scenting center? Trying to lead me on a wild goose chase to make me give up? My head was about to explode. I took a few heavy breaths, and then, steeling myself, I yelled for my secretary with all my might. A knock came quickly at the door. Mr. Miller, you called for me? Justin's eyes grew colder. He actually leaned down and tried to cover my mouth with his. I turned my head. The kiss barely grazed my cheek, landing on my earlobe. Come in. The door opened. My secretary clearly hadn't expected this scene. As a beta, he couldn't smell how aggressive Justin's pheromones were right now. But his top-tier professionalism kicked in quickly. He slipped inside and shut the door. Mr. Miller, what do you need? I met Justin's gaze, forcing myself not to back down. Call security. Justin just stared at me, motionless. My secretary actually picked up the internal line and dialed the security office, but I never relented. The grip on my wrist loosened. He stood up, looking straight at me. Julian Miller, I'm not letting go. You'd better be prepared to be tangled up with me for the rest of your life. Long after he left, I was still leaning on the desk, unable to move. My secretary glanced at my face worriedly. Are you all right? Should we go to the hospital? I pinched the bridge of my nose. Show me my upcoming schedule. He quickly handed me the tablet. It took several swipes to get to the bottom of the list. Never mind. I looked down and straightened my crooked tie. I simply didn't have the time. I worked nonstop for several days. Justin, true to his word, was a persistent shadow, popping up at every opportunity. Leo Chen sent me a message late one night. Is the person you like Justin? 2 seconds later, he retracted it. I pretended I hadn't seen it. What did you send? He was typing for a long time on the other end, but finally only one sentence appeared. Nothing. I don't know if I offended Mr. Hall somehow, but I've been getting targeted by him lately. I stared at the message for a long time until the screen went dark. I stubbed out the cigarette in my hand into the ashtray and opened the unsaved number. Stop harassing innocent people. Leo Chin didn't contact me again. Brendan must have heard some rumors, because he couldn't resist coming to fish for information. What's going on? Did you two sleep together? When I didn't answer, he got anxious. Then hurry up and sleep with him again. If you don't hurry, the inheritance will all be mine. His relationship with the college student he was sponsoring was getting serious, and my other brother, Ian, was also making rapid progress. I was debating whether to tell them the truth about the will when the hospital called. Grandpa's condition had worsened. He was only lucid for a few moments a day. He looked at me, his eyes full of expectation. But I was speechless, unable to step forward. I was the only one left. And even at a time like this, I was still making him worry. After seeing off a stream of visitors, my head was splitting so badly I could barely stand. My pale face scared my secretary so much that he urgently canceled all my subsequent appointments. The test results came back quickly. Widow's syndrome. It often occurs in omegas who have lost their bonded alpha. When a mating bond isn't reinforced by the alpha over a long period, it can cause a cognitive breakdown, making the body attack itself. The treatment was simple. Either receive the marker's pheromones again, or have the mark removed completely. It wasn't even a choice. The mark removal surgery was scheduled for 3 days later. I went home with painkillers and sat alone in my unlit bedroom until late at night. Finally, I let out a sudden, solitary laugh. You're so useless, Julian Miller. Even after giving it your all, you still can't hold on to anything. I ran into Justin again at an investor dinner. Unsurprisingly, this time he was there as the eldest son of the Hall family, effortlessly navigating a sea of sycophants. Our eyes met and I quickly looked away. The distance was a bit too far to hear clearly, but I could still feel the subtle shift in their conversation. I didn't need to guess. Just the same old tired cliché about how the Miller family was doomed in the hands of 3 Omegas. I felt nothing. My face was blank as I scanned the venue for a familiar face. Leo Chun was standing by the dessert tower in the corner. I had just taken a few steps in his direction when he suddenly looked nervous and bolted in the opposite direction without a backward glance. I slowly stopped. It was almost funny. After standing there for a moment, a figure approached me. Mr. Miller, I sent my profile to the matchmaker. How come you haven't contacted me? I turned my head. It was a man I barely recognized. One of the very few alphas who had responded. A spoiled brat who had bullied a classmate into jumping off a building in high school, and after his family cleaned up the mess, showed no remorse. He was known for harassing strangers on the street and dragging them into alleys when rejected. A true degenerate. I was desperate for a marriage alliance, but choosing someone like him, Grandpa would probably roll over in his grave. I raised my glass and replied with a faint smile. I'm currently in talks with someone else. I really can't be distracted. Ah, who's the lucky one? His words were complimentary, but his tone was dripping with sarcasm. I glanced at my secretary, who took the hint and came over to rescue me. Even after walking a good distance away, I could still feel his eyes glued to my back. I pushed open the door to the restroom, the nausea I'd been suppressing all night rushing to my head. Give me the painkillers. The medicine packet was handed to me. I'll get you a glass of water. The door closed and was pushed open again shortly after. I poured the pills into my palm and held out my hand to my secretary. There was no movement from the other side. What medication are you taking? My hand froze in mid-air. I slowly raised my head. The mirror over the sink was spotless. Without even turning around, I could see Justin standing in the doorway, his face grim. The door behind him was pushed open again. July, my secretary, holding a glass of water, stopped dead in his tracks. Justin turned to him. Is your boss sick? My secretary looked at him, then at me and prudently kept his mouth shut. Justin scoffed and grabbed the doorknob. Stand guard outside. I was immediately on alert and started to walk out. Julian, are you sure you want to make a scene with me here? Just on the other side of the door were all the most influential people in the city. I clenched my fists, then let them fall, defeated. Let me go. Not until I get an answer. Justin was unyielding, ready for a full-blown confrontation. Do I need to go to the hospital and pull your records? A jolt of panic shot through me, and I instinctively cried out, Don't. His expression changed. He tilted his chin at my hand. Open it. The pills were melting from my body heat, a sticky mess in my palm. Painkillers. His gaze moved from my hand to my face as he stepped closer. Where does it hurt? Being provoked by that alpha earlier, now my whole body ached. I tensed up and shot him a cold smile. Are you a doctor? Justin couldn't be driven off by sarcasm. He cornered me, raising a hand to my cheek. Where? I didn't speak, so he moved his hand down, inch by inch. Everywhere he touched, my skin trembled. I finally broke, letting out a soft whimper. Stop touching me. His hand stopped at my waist and slowly wrapped around me. He pulled me into his arms. The warm scent of black iris filled my senses, and the strength holding me up suddenly vanished. Julian, can you just be honest with me for once? How could I be honest? I was even lying to myself. If I faced my true feelings right now, I would absolutely hug him back, wrap myself around him. I'd seduce him, push him to his limit, and then cruelly make him listen to the sounds of the party just outside the door. The embrace suddenly stiffened. I jolted, realizing with a shock that I actually had hugged him back. No. I quickly pulled my hands away, my breath catching in my throat. Let me go. I have a headache. Just looking at you gives me a headache. Makes me sick. My whole body feels awful. Justin paid no attention, holding me with one arm while his other hand forcefully slid behind my back. My belt was already buckled as tight as it could go. He used brute force to get his hand in, and the pressure made me cry out in pain. Soon I couldn't make a sound. Justin pulled his hand out, forcing me to look at the slick moisture on his fingertips. Here or at home. Choose one. I had no way of explaining to Justin why my body wasn't resisting, but was instead welcoming him. I felt like I was back 5 years ago. The situation was chaotic, and with no outlet for the pressure, I could only indulge in carnal pleasures. Was I going to fall back into it again? To just briefly forget all my problems? Julian, you never got my mark removed. There was no forgetting my problems. What else have you been hiding from me? The problems were just piling up. I gripped the bedsheets, choosing the most embarrassing but effective way to change the subject. Your technique is garbage. What? The conversation and interrogation came to a halt. It was effective but hell on my back. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I vaguely heard him on the phone. The last 5 years, yes, OBGYN? Send the records from 5 years ago, too. All of them. I opened my eyes, lying in bed. My body felt clean and my mind was clear. I stared at the ceiling for a while, then picked up my phone. A flood of messages had drowned the entire screen. So much for feeling clear. I pinched the bridge of my nose and started going through them one by one. A blanket was silently draped over my shoulders. The food's getting cold. I glanced at the tray on the bedside table but didn't put down my phone. Justin didn't force me to eat first. I was a little surprised, but it was only a fleeting thought before I was completely engrossed in my work again. After dealing with the most urgent matters, I stretched my stiff shoulders and neck, only to find my hand covered in bite marks. My scent gland was practically chewed to pieces. Memories of last night flooded my mind, and I finally felt a belated sense of unease. Justin didn't notice my inner turmoil. He lit a cigarette and asked calmly, "Is the Miller family yours alone?" I froze for a moment, the ripples in my heart slowly calming. The Miller family wasn't mine alone, but I was the eldest brother. I had to shoulder the responsibilities of our absent parents. The tsunami had not only taken my parents but also my freedom. I took the cigarette from his fingers and put it between my own lips. You wouldn't understand. Then teach me. I want to understand. The cigarette smoke suddenly felt harsh. I crushed it out on the table in disgust. This tastes awful. What did you put in it? Some weird flavor bead. As soon as the words were out, I tasted a faint hint of lime. I fell silent. After a long time, Justin handed me the reheated food. Eat first. I stared at the steam for a moment, then looked up. Justin, even though we slept together again last night, it doesn't mean we're back together. I still can't be with you. I had braced myself for him to blow up, to throw a tantrum, but he just looked down, scooped up a spoonful of soup, blew on it and brought it to my lips. I stared blankly, then obediently drank it. He waited until I finished the whole bowl of soup before he spoke, his voice muffled. I'm sorry. He had really worn me out last night. No, that didn't seem to be what he meant. Are you terminating the partnership? It was Justin's turn to be surprised. No, they can't touch that company. Then what was he sorry for? Did he think that now that he'd had his breakup sex and fulfilled his wish, it was time for a clean break? I didn't ask. I just buried my head in my food. Justin waited quietly for me to finish. If you're not feeling well, call me anytime. I wasn't going to hide it from him. That shouldn't be necessary. I'm having the mark removed the day after tomorrow. He didn't seem surprised. He just nodded. I know, but give me some time. What did he mean? Give me some time. Thinking back, he had been acting strange. As if fate itself was on Justin's side. I never made it to the operating table. I got sick. I had probably been running on fumes for so long, my nerves stretched to their limit, that the moment I relaxed, a host of ailments came crashing down on me. It started as a small cold and ended with me being hospitalized. Lying in the hospital, too anxious to eat, my brother Ian came to visit me. Without a word, he slammed my laptop shut and tossed it aside. I was in the middle of a meeting recording. I frowned and ordered coldly, "Put it back." "You don't trust me?" "It's not that." "Then what the hell are you watching? The meeting's over. What problem could there be? And if there is a problem, it's on me to handle. Is the Miller family yours alone?" The exact same words. I didn't want to explain to Justin, but with Ian, I was afraid he'd misunderstand. I never thought that. I just wanted to pave the way for them, to make it a little smoother. "That's enough." He cut me off and started peeling an apple. "Can you just take a break?" I was quiet for a moment, but I couldn't help but ask, "By the way, the investment for the Sterling City project." Ian shot me a glare, and the rest of the words died in my throat. The subject changed. "Have you been to see Grandpa?" The long apple peel suddenly snapped. Ian stopped peeling, sighed almost imperceptibly, and his expression grew serious. "The doctor said it'll be any day now. Brendan's already started making arrangements, so it won't be too rushed." A heavy weight settled in my chest. I had expected it, but I still couldn't accept it, especially since I hadn't been able to fulfill his wish. "Give me a cigarette." I didn't get a cigarette. Instead, I got a mouthful of apple. Ian stood up, took a tissue from his bodyguard, and wiped his hands. "Bro, there are 3 of us." I took a bite and chewed slowly. "I know. And in the future, there might be 6 of us, or even more. You don't have to carry it all alone. And another thing." He looked at my already scabbed neck. "Someone asked me to pass on a message." I looked up, already guessing who it was. But Ian suddenly faltered. Kapu. Ugh, what did he say again? It was some weird foreign gibberish. The bodyguard behind him whispered a few reminders, but Ian just clicked his tongue impatiently. "Fine, you heard it, right? Yeah. Capulet and Montague doesn't have to be a tragedy. Wait for me." On the 3rd day of my hospital stay, I was sleeping soundly when a person suddenly appeared beside me. "It's me." I lowered my fist, my tense body relaxing. "Could you at least give a heads up? I saw you were asleep." Justin nuzzled into the crook of my neck. "Don't push me away." I had a faint feeling something was wrong. I pressed a hand to his chest, and he sucked in a sharp breath. "What's wrong?" I tried to turn on the light, but he stopped me. "It's nothing. I got beat up for stealing something. I deserved it." "Stealing something?" "A piece of the family fortune. In a few days, it'll all belong to the Millers. And I'll belong to the Millers, too." "How does that sound?" I froze for a second, then I was wide awake. "What nonsense are you talking about? Is this your idea of kapu? Damn it, what is that stupid foreign word?" Justin laughed, the air brushing against my cheek and curling gently around my ear. "I'm sorry. I was naive before. Naive enough to think that if we just got married, they wouldn't target you, that even the deepest grudges would eventually fade. And I never realized that all you ever needed was a gesture. No matter what happens, I will always be on your side. I will always be by your side. Respect your decisions and cherish everything you hold dear. That's my commitment to you." For a long, long time, I didn't speak. Justin's voice grew softer. "I'm gonna sleep for a bit. Wake me up at 6. "Why 6? He let out a soft laugh. "There's still a little something left to steal." But I never expected him to be the one to wake me up. It was still dark outside. The lights in the hospital room were on. Justin, dressed in an all-black suit, was kneeling on the floor, putting on my shoes. I rubbed my eyes. "What time is it?" My movements froze. He pressed his lips together and carefully draped a coat over my shoulders. "Can you walk?" I had thought about this moment countless times, but when it actually arrived, I was far calmer than I had ever imagined. "Yes, I can walk on my own. I am the eldest brother. I have to take charge." I handled Grandpa's funeral flawlessly. After the burial, the mourners dispersed. Justin stood with me, staring blankly at the new headstone. "Julian, I have to confess something to you." I didn't say anything. He continued on his own. That night at the party, I went to see your grandpa. I told him about us, told him I wanted to win you back. Guess what he said? I slowly turned my head. What? He said. Justin looked at me. A soft smile on his face. You pass. Something fell from my eye. I stared, raising a hand to catch it. Another drop. The third drop never fell. Justin pulled me into his arms, and the tears I never wanted anyone to see soaked into his suit jacket. When I felt like I had cried enough, I pushed him away. Do you want to meet the one I got rid of? I bit my lip, unsure how to define the unformed child. I've already seen it. That stone is from the front yard garden, right? Yeah. It's beautiful. If it were me, I would have chosen that one too. You don't blame me? Justin was honest. Back then, I might have. He had changed. And yet, he hadn't. I followed behind him, step by step, down the stairs. Ian, who had gone back to the office, called. The Hall family is taking advantage of the situation. They stole a big contract from us. Justin stopped and held out a hand to me. I took 2 more steps down and placed my hand in his palm. Steal it back for me.